Yo, welcome back for a tour rating video here on the second channel, and today we're going to be looking at the Malaysia Championship 2024 results here. Now, of course, Malaysia did have a tournament this past weekend, and I'm excited to take a look at the results because there was some pretty interesting stuff here within the top 32. And unfortunately, I don't have every single list available. It wasn't posted a limit list or anything, but PokeStats here was kind enough to be able to provide some of the deck lists from the tournament. So while we don't have every deck, we can look at some of the decks here that did perform well. And of course, if y'all are playing in any upcoming League Cups and League Challenges, hopefully some of these decks might help you, give you some ideas of what you might want to play to a League Cup or Challenge. I think it's still pretty important to look at any tournament results that we have right now as we head into this new season, as, of course, again, League Cups and Challenges have now been resumed for the 2025 season. So yeah, big shout out to PokeStats here. I'll leave a link to PokeStats down in the description below. Make sure you go check out their website and all that stuff. Follow them on Twitter. I'm sure you've seen them on Twitter before. They do post very important tournament information on their Twitter, but they were nice enough, of course, to provide most of the results here from the Malaysian Championships. And if y'all are new here to the second channel, make sure to subscribe down below. We're on the road to 15,000 subscribers. And if you go on to enjoy the video, leave a like and all that good stuff. So without further ado, let's take a look at the results here from the tournament. So the first place list actually was a Chien-Pao deck. Now, it's a very interesting Chien-Pao list. As you can see here, it is a Chien-Pao deck, but the Chien-Pao deck played the Dunsparce in it. Something you don't usually see within Chien-Pao is Dunsparce, and it was in the champion list here at the Malaysia Championships. Now, the interesting about this list is there's a lot of different things going on within the Chien-Pao list. It's not a usual, like, Chien-Pao list, right? Usually you'll see the Chien-Pao 60 that we've always been seeing with the Bibarels and the Cypher Maniac and stuff, but this build is a lot different. Of course, it's not even playing Bibarel, it's playing the Dunsparce instead, and it also plays Lumineon V and Rotom V within the deck, and it's playing a different supporter engine, playing Arven, Roxanne, and Irida, and has Capturing Aromas and Bravery Charm. So there's a lot more going on within this list. Now, the Dunsparce is an interesting concept. I've actually seen it before in Chien-Pao, but yeah, it's kind of like just having the Bibarel gives you a draw engine. Dunsparce goes back into the deck, so sometimes you can open up a bench space if you ever need it. And of course, there's a bit of another engine in the deck alongside the Rotom and the Lumineon. Rotom can build you up a pretty big hand, which, I mean, if you're looking for those turn 2 combos, like if you're looking to get turn 2 Iron Hands or turn 2, you know, Greninja off or whatever, then honestly having access to the Rotom isn't terrible. The downside of Rotom, it does eat up a bench spot. And bench space is very limited when playing at Chien-Pao, but when you have the Dunsparce in the deck, maybe it's not too bad, because, again, the problem with playing Bibarel, sometimes your opponent can go boss, knock out Bibarel, and it can screw you over, but when you have the Dunsparce, they can't go after the Dunsparce as easily, and, you know, maybe they go after Baxcalibur, but it's really, like, once you kind of establish a really good board state, it's really hard for your opponent to KO your Baxcalibur and you not be able to get another one into play very easily. It's a very interesting 60. There's also Bravery Charms within the deck. Bravery Charm is an interesting concept, giving your Pokemon more health. Pretty good with Iron Hands specifically. If you get like turn 2 hands with Bravery Charm on, that's pretty scary. Not a lot of decks can sometimes answer a 280 HP Iron Hands on the second turn of the game, especially if you were to Rotom into it. The idea of Rotom definitely seems really cool because, again, you can easily get to a fast Iron Hands off, and maybe that's what the concept of the deck wants to do, is it wants to get that really fast and speedy Iron Hands off. So yeah, really cool Chien-Pao 60 here for sure, and definitely one to take a look at, because who knows, maybe this build actually could end up being decent after all. And that was what won the tournaments. Yes, Chien-Pao Baxcalibur did win the tournament, but in second place here, we do have a Lost Box deck here. Now, Lost Box is still in a pretty good spot right now, and this build actually does have some interesting things going on within the deck. So, it's actually not a Lost Zone deck playing the Lightning stuff. No Thorns, no Hands. It's actually just playing Sableye, Cram, and a couple Verslunas. I guess I can zoom in real quick here on the list a little bit more. It's a little bit small, but yeah, as you can see, the list is very different than what we've been seeing with Lost Box. It's actually prioritizing just Sableye as one of your main attackers. Still does play Greninja. In fact, it looks like double canceling Cologne with Greninja. So really try to take advantage of the one prizers that Lost Box can take advantage of. Playing the Cram, the Sableye, the Greninja. But it is also playing double Blood Moon Ursaluna, which could be overkill, but Ursaluna is a very strong card that does allow you to knock out Iron Hands, and most of the time, Ursaluna is all you really need. And while you're not playing Iron Hands, the deck take 2 prizes. You can take 2 prizes via Greninja or Sableye. Again, the deck does play 2 copies of Canceling Clone, so a lot of the time you are going to be pulling off those clone plays. It also plays the TM Devo in the deck, so you're having a better time into Dragapult and Charizard, of course, which can be scary matchups for a deck without having Iron Hands or Thorns or anything like that, like any anti like Pidgeot cards. So I mean, the idea is you're just going fast. Just play the double Pokestop, plays Temple of Sinnoh to respect the Lugia matchup. The supporter count's interesting too. It's also playing double Roxanne, not something you usually see within Lost Box, but this build does play the 2 Roxanne. Also plays a Pal Pad. You can see the Pal Pad there in between the Devo and the Prime Catcher. So there is a Pal Pad in the deck also. So you can Roxanne a lot of times. I mean, Roxanne's a pretty good card, and having 2 of them is really strong. And of course, could be really good within the mirror match too, which I'm sure is one of the better matchups here for this Lost Zone deck. Very interesting 60 for sure. Definitely one that I might try out myself, because I do like the idea of just playing, just leaning more into your basic attackers, as your single prize attackers, sorry, as opposed to the lightning stuff like the Thorns in the Hands, and just kind of leaning more into the 1 prize options that you have access to, because, like I said, double Cologne Greninja does allow you to get around Manaphy pretty easily. And of course, the double Sableye can be very good too. Sableye is just a very good attacker, and there's not really much Jirachi going on within the format right now. And that did get second place. It did fall to the Chien-Pao deck. I would imagine that matchup maybe went like the Chien-Pao player ended up going first, and just getting that turn 2 hands off is very, very strong, especially with that Rotom V. There was a Chien-Pao that did get third place also, so 2 Chien-Pao in the top 4. Chien-Pao's honestly in a pretty decent spot. I think it's actually one of the more underrated decks in the format right now. I think Chien-Pao's not in a bad spot whatsoever. I'm not surprised to see a couple Chien-Pao here do well in the tournament. And in the top 4, there was also a very interesting list here. We got ourselves the Regidrago VSTAR deck here in the top 4. Now, Regidrago VSTAR is starting to make a name for itself after its NAIC run, and we are seeing the Regidrago deck here in the top 4 of the tournament. Now, this list does have some interesting stuff in it. It is playing the normal Dragon lineup with the Dragapult, the Goodra, the Noivern, but also plays a 1/1 line of Giratina V-Star. Now, it's not attacking with Giratina. There's no Psychic Energy or anything like that in the deck, but it's using the Giratina V and V-Star as extra attackers. So the nice thing that Giratina V-Star does is it does do 280 damage, and you do have to get rid of 2 energy, but if you're using Ogerpon's ability, it's not that bad. And then, of course, you do have the Giratina V within the deck. The Giratina V does give you that Shred option, which is very good to have Shred when you're playing against Mimikyu. So, I mean, against Control, you already have the Mew in the deck, so a lot of the time when you're playing against the Stall deck, you can actually attack with Mew EX, and Mew does attack into the Snorlax and the Mimikyu. Mew can be one of the best attackers in the deck, but when you have Giratina V, if your opponent were to promote the, if they were to promote the Mimikyu, you can just shred it with Drago instead of having to like switch or retreat it, which you do get a lot of value out of. And again, the Giratina V-Star can be good because one of the main things Drago likes to do is it likes to use Raging Bolt as an attacker. Raging Bolt does do a ton of damage and it lets you take big KOs, but you have to get rid of a lot of energy when using your Raging Bolt. Whereas Giratina, instead of getting rid of 4 energy to do 280 damage, Giratina only gets rid of 2 energy, so you kind of save a little bit more energy when using the Giratina V-Star, but you still get a lot of value out of it, because 280 damage is a lot of damage. Instead of getting rid of 4, you get rid of 2. You do have to Lost Zone the energy, though, which is the only downside. But I do like the idea of playing the 1/1 Tina line. It does help a little bit in those matchups. The one thing, too, the deck plays the Scoop Up Cyclone in the deck alongside a Penny. I know, though, the layout's a little bit weirder, but yeah, you see the Scoop Up Cyclone Penny in the deck. Obviously, really good when playing against Stall and Control. And then obviously you do have the 3 boss, Iona. There's a Silene in the deck too. That's kind of interesting. Silene to get back resources. Silene can be really, really good if you want to reuse that Penny or the Scoop Up Cyclone in the deck. There's a Jamming Tower in the deck too. You can see Jamming Tower right there. You got a Captain Aroma, which is an interesting way to find evolutions. You got the 1 switch. So the deck is pretty simple with what it's doing. Still got all the dragons. Still a Regidrago deck at heart, but still proving that Regidrago is still a very powerful deck in the format. And maybe it's one that a lot of people may have to consider going forward, because Drago is starting to get a bit of its name for itself. And especially if at the World Championships the deck actually does well, because if it does get, you know, those new cards like Kyurem, Drago could actually be a force to be reckoned with going forward. Definitely a deck that I feel like you got to respect at this point. It did get top 4 of the tourney, so it's definitely starting to make more of a name for itself, like I said. We do see Raging Bolt here did get top 8 also. Raging Bolt Ogerpon is also a pretty strong deck right now. One of the more like straightforward, go fast, big beat 'em up decks here in the format. But yeah, it did get top 4. And looking at the list here, it doesn't look like there's anything too crazy going on in the deck list. I guess the one thing to note, there's double Flutter Mane, but yeah, nothing too crazy going on within the list overall. Does play the double Flutter Mane, really good against Lost Box. Just Flutter Mane can be really good in general. Does play the Trekking Shoes in the deck. It's got the double boss, I guess, which is a bit of a standout. It's got 2 boss, 2 Pokemon Catcher, and a Prime Catcher, so a little bit more heavier on Gust. Obviously, again, there's no Sandy Shocks in the deck. There's no Mew EX in the deck either, it looks like. Just leaning more into, like, the Gust. It's got the Flutter Mains in there, too. But yeah, really nice Raging Bull 60. Again, Raging Bull's a pretty strong deck right now, and not surprised to see it do good in this tournament at all. And we had a loss on Tina in top 8. I'm definitely interested to see how the Tina deck did in the tournament. I want to see a list for sure, because it did get top 8, and then we got a Lugia in top 8, a Lost Zone box in top 8, and then, of course, Snorlax outside the top 8. Ancient box did get top 16. Now, one interesting thing, one of the more standout decks, in my opinion, is actually the Charizard Control deck in the top 16 here. So I've actually seen this list. But yeah, Charizard Control is definitely a very interesting deck here that did get top 16 in the tournament. I did want to take a look here at the list real quick, because this is kind of similar to what we saw win at the LA Regionals. One interesting thing that Pidgeot Control did gain with the new set was, of course, the addition of Bloodman Ursaluna and Wellspring Ogerpon. You can see them both being in the list here, but it does have that 1/1 Charizard. So while you kind of diminish your opponent's resources via the control stuff, you can also just kind of come in with a late game with a big Charizard that a lot of the time the opponent might struggle against. The list here does also play Erica's Invitation in the deck, has Eerie in there too, Misfortune Sisters, Silene, even playing a Giacomo in the deck, which I guess you have to play due to the popularity of Lugia. Does have the pennies and stuff. Like, it's a pretty, like, not, I was about to say simple Pidgeot. It's not a simple deck at all, but it's a Pidgeot Control list with a lot more going on. And if you're somebody who wants to play Pidgeot Control, definitely take a look at the 60. I do like the idea of playing the Radiant Charizard on the deck here. We can look a little bit more at the list here. We can see the Hero's Cape, playing Lost City and Calamitous Wasteland. I would imagine the Lost City is really good against Gardevoir, which I don't think is a bad matchup whatsoever, but the Lost City makes the Guardian matchup a little bit stronger. Does play just more normal control stuff. The Calamitous Wasteland, I guess, is one of the more highlight standout cards within the 60 here. But yeah, really cool list for sure. And if you're somebody who wants to play control, not stall, but wants to play control, this could be a really good 60 to pick up on. Because I do like the idea of Charizard. Like, I still think that the Charizard Pidgeot Control deck, that 1 LA, is still honestly in a decent spot going into this format. Like, it still doesn't seem bad. You just have to kind of reconfigure the list, maybe tweak around some cards, figure out more of the lines in different matchups, because the matchups are a bit different now. But overall, I don't think it's a bad deck at all, and I definitely think that control could be in a good spot going forward if played by the right players. We'll have to see where it goes at the World Championships, but, you know, if you're somebody who likes control, wants to play it at maybe an upcoming cup or something, maybe you could consider playing the Pidgeot Charizard Control deck, because it does seem decent. It did get top 16 in the tournament, so yeah, it did end up doing pretty well. There was a Lugia Archetypes deck here that did get top 16 also. Lugia definitely feels like it might have been a little overhyped post-NEIC or going into NEIC, and then post-NEIC, it seems like it could have fallen off a little bit. We do see the Lugia list here. It is a Cinccino build here of the deck. One of the more popular ways to play Lugia right now is with the Earthen Vessels and the Basic Energy, but this Lugia 60 does play the Cinccino still, has the Iron Hands, also plays the Wellspring Ogerpon, a card we haven't really been seeing as much in Lugia, but this build here does play the Wellspring in the deck. Still trying to catch people off guard, because again, if I'm playing against Lugia, a lot of the time I'm not really expecting Wellspring, because I don't think it's as popular anymore. Like, I'm personally not expecting it when playing against Lugia, and that can definitely be bad, because sometimes you just get immediately punished if the opponent does have the Wellspring Ogerpon within the deck. But yeah, there you go. If you're somebody who wants to play Lugia, this could be a good 60 to pick up on for sure. Then we look at more of the list here. There was a Gouging Fire in top 16. Another list I would love to see the 60 of is a Gouging Fire deck. I've seen a few Gouging Fire deck lists in the online tournaments recently, but I'd really love to see the list that got 13th place. But in the top 16, there was an Iron Hands, Iron Crown deck here, a Future Box deck in the top 16. And Future Box definitely feels like it's another one of those, like, potential underrated decks in the format. We can see the list here a little bit. Looking at it here, it's got the hands, got the Miraidon, the crown. Doesn't look like there's anything else in the deck. I don't see any Iron Thorn or anything, just opting for just straightforward Iron Hands within the decks. Yeah, no thorns or anything like that in here, it looks like. But yeah, Future Hands doesn't seem like a bad deck right now. Like, any deck that can use Iron Hands seems to be pretty good. And I mean, Iron Hands did win the event, right? We saw that Chien-Pao list did win the event. And Future Hands isn't bad right now either. It's got a good Lugia matchup. Even without the Iron Thorns, your Lugia matchup is still insanely winnable. I would imagine your Guardian matchup is close also. Again, you're just one of the stronger Iron Hands deck. You could make the debate that this deck is better than Miraidon even right now at abusing Iron Hands. And we haven't seen a Miraidon list yet. Now, this is Malaysia tournament, so maybe Miraidon isn't as good as something like the Future Hands. Maybe Future Hands is just overall a better deck for sure. Could be, you never know. Future Hands definitely seems like it could be on that path. All right, let's see here. So we got the Future deck now. There was another Raging Bolt Ogre Pond deck here within the top 16. We can take a look at real quick here. Another Raging Bolt list here pulled up. Yeah, another very like straightforward list. I guess kind of straightforward. There's no Sandy Shocks, opting for the one of Fluttermane, plays Iron Bundle. I guess like the one standout tech card in the deck is the Enhanced Hammer. Something you don't usually see in Raging Bolt, but it's not bad against Lugia. Lugia is already one of your like. I mean, it's not. It's actually a closer matchup than you might think. It can be a tough matchup if they set up. But yeah, the Enhanced Hammer probably makes the Lugia matchup a little bit more winnable. Then, of course, there is no Iono in the 60 here. It's just plain Boss and Sada. So, yeah, pretty cool stuff. Raging Bolt definitely still a good deck. We see a couple in the top 16 here. Now, one of the big standout decks from the tournament was, of course, the Froslass Monkey Dory deck here within the top 16. Now, this one's really cool. Yeah, Froslass Monkey Dory in top 16 is pretty sick. So we'll take a look at the 60 here real quick. A deck that, I mean, a lot of people might be saying it's more of like a rogue meme deck, but does seem pretty interesting in the format if played by the right player. Because I would imagine it's a bit of a harder deck. It's kind of like a control deck, as you can see here. It does play some interesting cards in it. It's got the 1/1 Noivern in the deck. Noivern being really good against Raging Bolt, obviously. It does play Ursaluna. We got Rotom. We got Mawile in the deck. Even playing Elekid, a card we haven't really been seeing play at all since it came out. The only baby Pokemon that's really been seen play is the Cleffa, but we see this build playing the Elekid, which can snipe something for 30 from 1 energy. It's playing the 3/3 Froslass, 3 Monkey Dory. So yeah, it's more of a control deck, and then obviously Froslass being really good at getting damage counters across the board. Plays double Devo, got the Unfair Stamp in the deck, double Counter Catcher, playing the Penny. I think we see that's Hassel beside Penny. I was trying to see what that was. You got a couple Arvins, Ionos, Iridas. Yeah, really cool deck. Definitely a fun one. I've ran into this deck a couple times on the ladder. It can actually be pretty scary to play against because, like, you would imagine, like, you can beat it because, like, oh, you're just running over your opponent. There's a lot of low HP Pokemon in the deck, but it actually is tough to play, and especially if you overextend your resources, you can get punished for it. You have to be very careful when playing against this deck. It did get top 16 in the tournament. A pretty decent run for a rogue deck like this, so we'll have to see if more Froslass decks pop up in the future because there is a lot of untapped potential with Froslass, and to see it get top 16 at this Malaysia tournament is definitely very, very exciting to see in the Malaysia Championships. So definitely cool to see the Froslass in the top 16. For sure. One of the more highlight standout decks. There was a Charizard Pidgeot deck outside top 16. Charizard Dragapult looks like the highest placing Dragapult EX attacking deck. I guess Regidrago kind of counts, but for counting like evolving into Dragapult, the best one did top 32. Another Dragapult in top 32. Miraidon in top 32. Raging Bolt. We see another Lost Zone deck here in the top 32. This one looks to be more like the NEIC winning list here with the Thorns, the Hands, the Ursaluna. Yeah, pretty similar to what we saw at NEIC. It looks like pretty close list. Might be a few changes, obviously, but it is pretty similar to Andrew Hedrick's build from NEIC. And that's still like the best way to play the Lost Box deck right now. I know the other build that did good in the tournament was not playing the Thorns or the Hands, but Lost Box is still very strong. And there's a lot of ways you can theoretically play the deck. And I think still one of the better ways, obviously, would just be the NEIC list. All right, let's see here what else we got. We got a Guardy list. So the highest placing Guardy deck did get top 32. Surprised to see Guardy do less well within this tournament, considering it's arguably the best deck in the format right now. This build here, looking at what we got in the list, we do see the Klefki and the Fluttermane in the deck for Lost Box. Not a bad meta call, considering there was a couple Lost Box doing good in the tournament. Does play the Tasigiri. I guess that's the one standout card within the Guardy list here. It is playing the Tasigiri, a card that, you know, we have been seeing a little bit within a Gardevoir. Some lists have been going on and off on playing the Tasigiri, but the Tasigiri can help with consistency. The downside of Tasigiri, though, is when you use it, you have to be able to attach energy to retreat it, which sometimes can get awkward. That's like the main argument I've been seeing behind not running Tasigiri within Gardevoir, is if you use it as your pivot, you have to attach to retreat it, or you have to Turo it. And a lot of the time, you don't want to do that. You want to, you know, you'd rather not do that, right? So it can be kind of an awkward card to use in the deck, but it was in this list here, and the list did get good. Did get top 32, so it was a pretty good run for sure. So maybe Tasigiri is pretty good. We got another Lugia deck here in the top 32. We can take a look at real quick. Looking at this Lugia 60, it's once again another Cinccino build here. Actually, is there... Okay, I was about to say, where's the Iron Hands at, bro? It's below the supporter account. We got this Iron Hands. The one interesting card, I guess, is the Fluttermane and the Roseanne's backup. Two cards that are definitely interesting in Lugia. Roseanne does let you reuse Legacy Energy multiple times in a match, which is pretty deadly. Then the Fluttermane can be good against Lost Box. Yeah, we got the energies here. Yeah, nothing too crazy in the Lugia list, other than like the Roseanne and the thing. I guess there's another Wellspring Ogerpon. So that's 2 Lugia decks this tournament that were playing the Wellspring Ogerpon. So I don't know, maybe that's going to make a comeback within Lugia. Maybe it's something you have to consider, again, when playing against Lugia. Who knows? Another Zard Pidgeon top 32, Ancient Box top 32. And the last deck to look at here in the top 32 is a very cool one. It's actually a Shiyu Armarouge Toolbox deck. It's not Arc Armarouge. It is Shiyu Armarouge. Definitely excited to look at the list here and break it down. So it's an Armarouge Toolbox deck, a deck that I do want to try out for a video very soon, because Armarouge Toolbox does have some cool plays it can make, and part of the deck itself is using that Shiyu EX. As you can see, there's no Arceus V-Star in the deck. A normal card you would see within Armarouge would be the Arceus, right, because it gets you energy in play, but this build does not play the Arceus. Instead, it opts for the Shiyu. Not playing the Arceus does open up a lot more bench space and deck space in the deck. Also, you can see here the double Shiyu in the deck. Shiyu does have an attack that can do 100 damage and can put energy into play. We see the lineup of attackers here. We got the Gouging Fire, got the double Mew in the deck, the Radiant Charizard, and we got the Iron Hands and the Wellspring Ogerpon and the Monkey Dory. So the Wellspring Ogerpon, I guess, is kind of the placement for the Delphox V, which Armarouge usually plays. The one standout is obviously Luminous Energy, right? Because you have these attackers like the Iron Hands and the Wellspring Ogerpon, the Monkey Dory. All these cards can abuse Luminous Energy. You can go Luminous Energy on Iron Hands and then put 3 Fire Energies onto your Iron Hands, and then you can immediately power up its Ampy Very Much attack. A very cool deck here, and I'm definitely down to try this out maybe for a YouTube video. I've always been down to try out an Armarouge Luminous Energy Toolbox deck. I don't think I've done a video on that before, so I'm definitely interested to try it out, so maybe it could be a future YouTube video on the channel, because it does look like it's a really cool deck. Having the options of a Toolbox deck are always fun. I'm always a big fan of Toolbox deck, and the fact that it got top 32 in the tournament is really exciting to see, so big shout for the list here. Really cool stuff, and congrats for getting the top 32 with a really cool rogue deck. Yeah, I'd really like the idea of the Luminous Energy. Again, the big standout is not playing the Arceus in the deck, opting for the Shiyu, which can help you. And the Shiyu would be good against Control too, I imagine, right? Having the double Shiyu can be good against Snorlax and stuff, help mill them. Prime Catcher is the ace spec. Pretty straightforward, like supporter account. Like everything else is like fairly straightforward, other than of course the Pokemon, the big standouts, and then of course the Luminous Energy package to go along with the Pokemon. So really cool Armarouge 60 here in the tournament. So like I said, there are some very interesting lists here. A lot of really cool 60s at the Malaysia Championships, and definitely interested to see where some of these decks can go going forward. Again, a lot of room for innovation right now within the format. We'll have to see where that goes going into the World Championships. Once again, if Charizard becomes BDF again, so maybe things get changed a little bit going into Worlds, but right now in our current format, I think the format is definitely open for a lot of innovation, and we did see a lot of really cool decks here within the tournament. I mean, there's a lot of different variety of decks, too. We see Chien-Pao, Lost Box, Drago, Giratina, Lost Zone, Snorlax, Ancient Box, Charizard Control, Gouging Fire, Iron Hands, Froslass, Charizard Dragapult, Straight Dragapult, Miraidon, Guardies, like Shiyu Armarouge, just a lot of variety of decks. And I feel like that's what the format is right now. We just see a lot of variety. It feels like you can play almost anything right now and have an okay run with it. And of course, we'll have to see where that goes at the World Championships. But yeah, if you were going to any cups and challenges this weekend, maybe any of these decks stand out to you, you can test them in them and maybe try them out for a cup or challenge for sure. I'm going to look at more tournament results very soon here on the second channel as we head into this new season. But I did want to look at the Malaysia Championship standings here. And again, there were some pretty cool decks that did do well in the tournament. I'm a huge fan of the innovations. But yeah, hope you all enjoyed this video here on the second channel. Again, I'll leave a link to PokeStats down below if you want to go check out the results for yourself, copy the list for yourself. Definitely check out PokeStats down below. Very important resource in the community. Yeah, if you're new to the second channel here, make sure to subscribe down below. We're on the road to 15K subs. You go on to enjoy the video, leave a like. What was your favorite deck that I looked at here from the Malaysia Championships? Let me know down in the comments below. And I'll catch you on another video here very soon. Bye-bye.